Prepare yourself for the revelation that will shake the foundations of college football. While rivals drown in excuses, Alabama forges its bloody domination in the locker rooms. What happens in there during halftime that turns the tide of the game and leaves opponents in panic? The raw, brutal truth is about to be exposed. American football is a sport of nuances, where every play, every tactical adjustment can mean the difference between glory and defeat. But amidst the complexity of strategies and the adrenaline of the games, there is one team that has elevated the art of adjustments to an almost mystical level: the Alabama Crimson Tide. They don't just win games, they deconstruct them piece by piece, especially in the second half. And the way they do this is a closely guarded secret, a ritual that unfolds in the silent corridors of the locker rooms, away from the curious eyes of the media and fans. Imagine the scene. The halftime whistle blows and the score is tight. Fans are apprehensive. Commentators discuss the first half flaws, and the players, exhausted, drag themselves into the tunnel. For most teams, halftime is a moment of relief, of physical recovery. But for Alabama, it's the start of a strategic war, an intense period of analysis and reformulation that determines the fate of the match. They enter the locker room as one team, but leave transformed, a war machine adjusted to crush any resistance. It is this metamorphosis that leaves opponents in panic. Every week, we see the same script repeat itself: a balanced first half, sometimes even unfavorable, followed by a second half where Alabama grows larger than life, suffocates the opposing offense, and scores points with relentless efficiency. It's not luck, it's not coincidence, it's a science, a dark art that few master and that Alabama has perfected over the years. The truth about this domination, about what really happens in those crucial halftime minutes, is about to be revealed. Prepare to see college football from a new perspective, one where Alabama's bloody secret is unveiled. You saw the score 14-14 against Vanderbilt, a tie, a threat. But then the complete blackout of the Commodores in the second half, 0 points. Coincidence? Never. The whistle blew for the start of the second half, and the Vanderbilt that had shone in the first 30 minutes simply disappeared. A total blackout. The offense that once seemed unstoppable became powerless. Passes that found their targets were now deflected or fell to the ground. Runs that gained yards collided against a crimson wall. The second half score for Vanderbilt? 0 points. Not a field goal, not a consolation touchdown, absolutely nothing. Where was the team that had tied the game? Where was the confidence, the momentum? They vanished, evaporated, swallowed by Alabama's adjustment machine. That 14-14 had turned into a comfortable 30-14 victory for the Crimson Tide. The difference, the second half. Vanderbilt's transformation from a respectable opponent to a mere extra is a brutal testament to Alabama's power after the break. Coincidence? Never. It is the first sign, the first clue of a deadly pattern that has been repeated for years and which we are about to unravel now. It's not an isolated event. Since the nightmare against Florida State, Alabama concedes an average of a meager 3.5 points per game in the second half. Georgia, Wisconsin, Louisiana Monroe, all victims of the same post-halftime poison. What is behind this frightening sequence? What happened against Vanderbilt was not an accident. Far from it. It's a pattern, a deadly pattern that has become the signature of the Alabama Crimson Tide, especially after what was considered a nightmare at the beginning of the season against Florida State. From that moment on, something changed in the way the Tide approached the second half of games. The numbers don't lie, and they paint a frightening picture for any opponent who dares to face Alabama in the second half. Since the game against Florida State, Alabama's defense has turned into an impenetrable fortress in the second half. They have conceded an average of a meager 3.5 points per game after the break. Think about that for a moment. 3.5 points. That's less than 1 field goal per game. It is a statistic that defies logic in college football, a sport known for its explosive offenses and high scores. Let's look at the examples, because the pattern repeats with a chilling consistency. Against Wisconsin, the Tide allowed a touchdown late in the game when the victory was already more than guaranteed and the result was no longer at risk. Without that irrelevant score, the number would be even more impressive. Against Georgia, one of the strongest teams in the conference, Alabama allowed only 7 points in the second half. 7 points against an elite offense. And then, as we already said, against Vanderbilt, 0. Absolutely nothing. But the list doesn't stop there. Louisiana Monroe also felt the post-halftime poison. That's 4 games, and in all of them, the second half was a defensive massacre by Alabama. This is not an isolated event. It is a terrifying sequence of dominance, an irrefutable proof that what happens in Alabama's locker room during halftime is not just a conversation or a superficial adjustment. It is a complete re-engineering of the game plan, a brutal dissection of the opponent's strategies. They come out for the second half not only more motivated, but also with an almost perfect knowledge of how the opponent will try to attack them and, more importantly, how to neutralize those threats. This deadly pattern is not an accident. It is the mark of a system, of a philosophy that has transformed Alabama into a nightmare for any team that dares to challenge them in the second half of a game. What is behind this frightening sequence? The answer, in large part, lies in the mind of a military strategist disguised as a defensive coordinator. Behind every great army, there's a genius strategist. And in the case of the Alabama Crimson Tide, the architect behind this second-half destruction machine goes by the name of Kane Wommack, the defensive coordinator. He doesn't just adjust the plane of game, he dismantles. He enters the locker room with the game dissected in his mind. Every opponent's play analyzed, every weak point identified. His players don't just receive instructions, they receive a detailed battle plan, a list of targets to be neutralized, of weak points to be exploited. It is a philosophy of war that transcends the football field, transforming the locker room into a battlefield where rivals are sentenced before they even return to the field. In his own words, Wommack explained the approach. Especially early on in the season, you get a feel for what a team is trying to do. So they've put a body of work on tape, but then specifically for you, for our team, how are they attacking us? Our staff has done a really good job. Our players have done a really good job, really since the Florida State game, of taking the adjustments that we have made on the sideline and at halftime and applying them to the next drive and the next series. If we continue to do that, we will make it hard for people as the game goes on to be an efficient offense. This is the essence of Wommack's philosophy. Identify the threats, understand how they are being applied against Alabama, and then create a plan to neutralize them. It's not about trying to do something new, but rather about perfecting what already exists, adapting it to the specific situation of the game. He and his team delve into the depths of the opponent's strategy. In the game against Vanderbilt, the numbers speak for themselves. The Commodores ran for only 9 yards after halftime and had 119 passing yards. Their average yards per play dropped from 7.9 in the first half to 4.3 in the second half. This is not a decline, it is a dismantling. Wommack emphasizes the importance of communication. I think the level of communication for our team, especially being in year 2 as a defense, just the understanding of coaches is really seamless when we get in there at halftime. The adjustments, we are very efficient with it right now. The communication to the players goes out through position coaches, and then I bring those guys all in and give them the overarching theme again, hit the high points of the things we need to make sure we defend so we can make people play left-handed. So whatever it is that they show, we are going to make sure that we take away those top 1, 2, 3 things in the game and then see if they can beat us with option 4, 5, or 6. This is the essence of Alabama's bloody secret. It is not a magic trick, but a methodical, almost scientific approach to warfare in American football. Kane Wommack and his staff transformed the locker room into a tactical command center where every play is studied, Every weakness is exploited, and every opponent is, ultimately, sentenced. The result is a second half that becomes hell for anyone who dares to challenge the Crimson Tide.